YouTube stream that we open up to the public every single Wednesday. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a breakdown on what's going to happen this morning. So before I pass along to Beth, once I pass along to Beth, Beth's going to come on and give you a breakdown of the macro environment, any news events that happen over the course of the evening, go through any of the bigger picture items, ETFs, commodities, individual names, etc. that makes sense to be looking at for today. After that's done, I'm going to come on. We're going to be going through the names that are gapping up, gapping down. We're going to be talking about those names, the news associated with those gap up, gap downs, building an action plan for the open, as well as going through the SPY, the FANG, the VIX, QQQs, and IWM. After that's done, South Beach will come and go through any of the analyst calls that he's looking at for today, macro environment, and basically what he's looking at for money flow as well. Once that's done, I'll come back on. We'll do a quick little recap of those individual names that we went through this morning, go through that action plan that I built, and then we'll be ready for the open. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead, pass it over to Beth, and I will talk to you guys shortly. Beth, if you're ready, it's all yours.
I am indeed, sir. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. Welcome. Premarket here, SpartanTrading.com. We'll see how things play out. Can I have the share screen, please? Thank you. It's the day before Thanksgiving, right? So there's opportunity to a certain degree, but all this week we've been looking at it as like a speed dating, lotto type every day, singles, whatever, doubles, triples if you get them, and you sell the pops or buy the drops and off you go. I don't see that changing, but as the day wears on, obviously the liquidity is going to get less and less. So we are subject to potential screamers. Okay, let's get through to the macro side. We do have a lot going on in terms of on the macro side today as well. This is the best reading on manufacturing PMI in Japan in 4 years. It's really quite stunning how the economy just struggles. And I did want to bring out to you, we've been talking about Taiwan Semi, right, and the joint venture they're doing in Japan, and there's some money was attributed to them from the government to help that out in that joint venture. And I think that's the narrative, at least with Taiwan Semi, is basically in the US and Japan, they're basically building the manufacturing hub outside of Taiwan to offset any potential issues with the Chinese government, as well as they've been having a drought, hard to believe. German IFO, as expected, a little weaker. And here we get mortgage backs, rates, and you can see, okay, durable goods coming out. Retail inventories. I don't know if you saw Kathy Woods on CNBC, and this is really important. I actually had not even had my brain going in the direction she was going in terms of why she thinks instead of stagflation, we're going into deflation. Because her narrative is that a lot of what we've seen in terms of these companies is building inventories as opposed to making sales, right? Her viewpoint is 5 years out, right? And that's why, and she thinks that a lot of these that have been taken to the woodshed are disruptors like a Zoom, et cetera, et cetera. That should be BTFDs on it. And I actually may take a little bit of a nibble on it to 2024, just for shits and giggles, because I really actually haven't swung any, Zoom long-term. So I'll get a feel for it and I will post it in the room, okay? All right, GDP sales. This is important, please. This core PCE prices. This is what the Fed looks at, okay? So, every couple of weeks we roll it out and they trim it. So they take out the high, they take out the low, and it's the middle part is what you look at. It's coming out today. It will be notable and important for this market, okay? All right, and announcement. Okay, I have to do this homage to our Canadian members. I get shit all the time from my Canadian family. I don't do enough shout outs. Supply chain woes is their game, okay? Well, what happened was the government basically made it almost impossible in terms of cross-border going back and forth traveling. Now they've lightened it up so that you can go across the border for 72 hours and not have to take a PCR test. This is really quite, well, anyways, I've done it, homage. All right, so we talked about this yesterday. This was just, there's some things that just make me giggle. This was one of those, okay, all across the globe, whatever. Doesn't even cover one day's worth of consumption. Anyways, I move on. I digress. Okay, U.S. joins with China, other nations having oil reserves, yada, yada. How will Fed regulate Wall Street? Biden central bank picks leave question unanswered. That's out of the Wall Street. This is important, okay, because Brainerd is a dove, and I showed you the picture that she's a dove. Powell is a little bit dovish, but he's more of a moderate against the Hawks. So we know, we have to keep an eye on that in terms of who they replace the board with. Here you go, $5.2 billion. Japan, Plant, Taiwan Semi, and others, LFG. And this makes a lot of sense, right? It would make a lot of sense that Taiwan Semi just wants to get the hell out of, have all their eggs in one basket. They want to diversify. Okay, strong demand continues to push up prices in US. No, duh. I don't know. We live in wondrous times, and whatever happens, it will be epic, historic, and economics will be rewritten because of what happened with this pandemic. I don't know, especially with the supply chain disruption. I think it's here to stay, but what do I know? Implement bank deposit back digital. Ooh, whoa. Okay, that's happening. Germany considers full COVID. Did she say yesterday? The German health minister says by April, either you'll be vaccinated, had COVID, or be dead. I can't make that one up, my friends. All right, investors should see how it stands and if the U.S. follows this advice. This is a narrative we do have to work, pay attention to on the macro side, because there's one theory that they're going to lighten up, and there's another that obviously that we're going to be harsher than. So that also impacts pricing, right? Biden picks little, and you got to read about her. You really do, okay? Because she's the number two, right? Anything happens to, not that I wish Powell ill will, but she's the number two. Jimbo, Google, Palo Alto, NVIDIA, AMD, Net, Microsoft, shouting it out, taking the bat to the fences. All right. We do this every day, and I show you that nothing is going on with the 20 years. It's like it doesn't even exist, okay? Taiwan's invitation confirmed for Democracy Summit hosted by Joe Biden. The other question is, will they show up? Antibody tests on demand. I have like 6 boxes, like I have 12 of them. China's homegrown virus. So they've got their own little Tamiflu going on. All right, that's good. All right, upgrades, downgrades quickly. Dollar Tree. Shout out to those of you who follow me on Dollar Tree. My students, all this, we did the roll, we bought it 12 cents. I've been selling some of it at 50. So I'm looking to roll again, FYI. I'm really ticked with this SYBX because I saw it printing yesterday and I didn't follow it. And the reason why I didn't follow it was because it was before Thanksgiving. So my bad. All right. Downgrades. Anyone surprised here on this list? Nordstrom, Gap stores. Wow, this is really crazy. This is a big, South Beach will go over it. That's a big deal though. Anyways, let's see who's our top peeps. Morgan Stanley. I don't understand why he's only 2 stars though. It doesn't make any sense to me. Ricardo, FMX, 100%. Upgrade, 31% average. I don't understand how he's only 2-star. Piper Sandler, ADI, lots of Autodesk upgrades, Morgan Stanley, Oppenheimer, all top dogs. Okay, reiteration. There was a downgrade by Piper on Plan, notable, right? Another one for Plan, makes sense, right? And then we have Dollar Tree, Telsey Advisory. Who cares? 70% upgraded, 20% return. Yesterday. Well, no surprises there, right? Let's see what's going on here with memes. Ouch. This actually could create quite the flush in Tesla because of meme buying. $84 million worth came in, and of that 84 million, 76 was call buying. So keep an eye on Tesla. We have a put butterfly for next week on it. All right. Apple continues to get some flows, but to be honest with you, not a lot. It's right before Thanksgiving. And a lot of this, I did, however, want to go over. I'm seeing a lot of longer dated sweeps coming in. out to January, out to March, which is what we want to see in this market. Okay, let's take a look at what's going on here in terms of our hype. Q5s, Royal Bank of Canada, Dollar Tree, Disney, CVS, and Bank of America. So this is what it looked like yesterday. Let's see if it updates. Okay. Yes, very light. Okay, light all across the board. This DT, Katie and I have never seen this one print before. These 65 calls. It's $8.1 million. My inclination is it's paper replacement, but we don't know because we've never seen it before. But there was also a put buy on it too, which I thought was kind of interesting. Here was the put. I mean, I don't know if this was a right against. I have no idea. I'm just saying that this is kind of interesting. All right, let's talk. Day before Thanksgiving. Okay. S&P the day before and the day after. This is what it looks like, friends. There's only been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 losing, well, let's say 11 since 1950. 11 since 1950. Statistically, that's important. Okay. Right. So you can see here, times up 53, times down 16. I apologize. This is the day before, this is the day after. Statistically relevant, combined 86% on the upside today and Friday, 10% on the downside. If you were right 86% of the time, would you not do it? Maximum up percentage, 4.5, maximum down. It's what there is with one. My story, that's what I do. I'm all about stats. I'm a quant kind of gal. All right, yesterday, fund flows. Spot, this is crazy what's going on here. The buying, the selling, the buying, the selling. Anyways, they were selling the day before they were buying. Where did the money flow? Qs. Okay, whatever. You can't, well, I have to say this, you really can't glean anything. All right. We had more green yesterday. Now we're having a little bit more red, and XLE is back to red, XLF financials. Overall, this is a fine heat map. I mean, look at this. Still a lot of green. Rose, not really deep reds, right? So dollar is obvious. So this is a tailwind for us. Don't forget, into December now, the second week of December is when we get tailwinds coming in on the seasonality side. Little sloppy choppy until then, and off we go. I said to take a look at all the different sectors, XLB coming in, IBB. This is interesting. I want to keep an eye on this one. I have an inclination to buy it, but I'll post it. We're getting a little cool here on discretionary, XLP, and we're going to do a deep dive today, my friends, on XLK. Okay, XLE, still coming in, financials, starting to curl up a little bit, down, XHB, healthcare down. So all of this, believe it or not, are tailwinds that are going to start to form once we start to basically curl up. All right, let's take a look at bonds. Well, every day I say the same thing. The 5-year is the taper point. That's what you have to pay attention to. Not the 10, but the 5. The 10 is irrelevant. It's the 5. Every day for weeks, months now, I've been saying this, and you know it to be true, and you'll see why. Okay, because if you look at the 10-year right here, this is where we're at. Whereas this, we've already broken out of this consolidation, and we've moved from 0.98 all the way up to 1.34. That's a big move. This is the taper level. There's the 5s against the 30s. Interesting, it is holding this extension breakout, so that's notable. I think this is a new quadrant. We won't know, obviously, because it's a monthly. It's going to take time. Next FOMC is going to be really important. Don't forget, the market is starting to price in an acceleration of the tapering. The market is starting to price in a potential rate hike in March of 2022, as opposed to June. We know that May, definitely. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay. All right. So here's the 5 against the 10, kicking ass, as we discussed. The 5 is kicking ass against the 10. It should, and it is, right? Here's a 10-year, still within the quadrant, not 10 against the 30, who cares? But we are breaking down, and basically, you can see here the extension, potentially 77% change. That's what I do. 5 against the 30, still kicking ass in the upper quadrant, right? Here's the TLT doing nothing. And this is the 20-year, basically, right? Here's the German rates, massive candle on the monthly, right? This is the low, this is the high. It's going to stay within there for quite some time. Germany against the US, it is bouncing off this pivot, notable 23.6%. Just keep an eye on that, please. Here's the Chinese and US breaking down here, right? So that means that the Chinese interest rates are either flat or going lower. And you can see right here that they are actually going higher. I'm sorry, going lower. And I'm actually shocked that we're not down here. And I really want to see what's going on. You see with the currency here, the dollar's kicking ass. This is actually a headwind, friends. We've talked about that, right? So let's take a look at the Chinese yuan. Like I say, it should be up here, right? They're weakening rates, and it's manipulated, right? So they wanted to maintain its strength. That's the story, and that's how we go. All right, let's take a quick look at on the commodity side. Gold's up a little bit. Oil is down a little bit. Not much going on here. Natural gas is up a little bit. I saw an article on KOLD, which is the leverage inverse ETF on the short side on natural gas, telling everybody to buy. Well, now is when you basically want to sell the KOLD and buy natural gas, because that's near the top. Just joking. Normally, right? CRB continues to hold up fine on the monthly crude. Bounced off the reversion to the mean. That's the 21.20 on the weekly, and on the so just keep an eye on that. It's also reclaimed this pivot box, so that's important as well. And this was the previous all-time high, 77.08. Notable. Crude against gold. This is very, very, very important spread for those of you who like to look at commodities. This is heavily traded outside the U.S. Right? Well, because if it's outside the U.S., right? It's the dollar is not their local currency, right? So it should make some sense. Anyways, double bottom, double top. We'll see how that plays out. Let's take a look overseas. DAX false breakout, really ticked about that. Holding the extension. It's a monthly though. I don't know. All right, here's the Fez. This is the stocks 50 ETF. Failure, robust failure. Here's the Fez against the SPY. This is really important, friends. Okay, this is a multi-month sideways consolidation breakdown. Very powerful continuation. What is this telling us? You want to be long the SPY, short the Fez. This is notable, all right? And the reason being is on the extension, it has basically almost a 25% performance against it, all right? Notable, all right? Okay. Here's the Qs against the DAX, and you can see breakout. So I see the same thing happen here, right? The Qs against the CQQQ, Qs against the DAX. This is a bullish narrative. Sideways consolidation still on. You can see right here on the Bollinger. So what it should start to do is curl up. This is a big deal, right? Why? Because it's where you want a best bang for your buck as an investment, right? Okay, here's EFA pulling back, reversion to the mean, breaking lower. It also is sideways consolidation for multiple months. We'll see how this breaks out. You're in the mid though, so there's not much there. And here you see IWM against CFA. This is also just it's ticking me off. But anyways, this tells us we can be long IWM against EFA, but it's not a high conviction trade. All right, sorry, that's my story. Shanghai Composite, yada, 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 manipulation, Baba JD still working. KWeb breaking down. Next leg down coming. I bought puts as a result of this on KWeb on the break of the pivot. All right, VXN consolidated and just massive. It's fascinating. But we really want to keep, once again, the VIX against the VXNY, S&P. The VIX, if it starts to go up, then that means S&P is going to go down, right? And we're going to see rotation out. FANG, oh my God, look at this. So sad, too bad, right? Breakout, false breakout. Back inside the quadrant, waiting for Godot. Here's the Qs against the CQQQ. You can see that, right? IWM, this is growth value. What a rebuff. So this means value is gaining against growth. Not a good look for the market as a whole. That means basically IWM is going down. Here's this growth against value as well. Failure on the breakout. Falling back inside, keep an eye on that. We really want this to go higher, but we got 2 weeks of doing nothing, basically. XLP, right? Consumer staples, keep an eye on this one. Consolidative, sideways consolidation. This is a multi-month, as you can see, sideways consolidation. So I'm looking for that to break out, actually. Here's the XLY. This is consumer discretionary, as you can see here, sideways consolidation, multiple weeks. And this is what it does. It does this sideways consolidation. The key question is going to be right now, is this going to be basically months, okay, or is it going to be very short? I suspect we haven't quite decided what the top end is going to be, and I think it's going to be multiple months, friends. Sorry. But anyways, I think this. And then the question is going to be, is it going to be like this? Okay. Right. A new ETF I'm looking at, taking it up for a spin on the wild side BDC. This is Vanguard's consumer staples. This is what it looks like. All right. So keep an eye on it. And the reason why is because it has different components that each one, XLP and VDC, have different weightings. So I'm just keeping an eye on it. Actually, what I should have done was I'll do a spread, but anyways, we'll see. Okay. All right. Costco seasonality, the power, we are getting there. I'm probably going to do a roll on that. And basically, this is from now, November all the way out to September. I'm in a very a roll already, but I'm going to look to extend it out. Why? 13 out of 14 years. Why? Now's the time when you look at size consolidation. Now's the time when Costco makes its next leg up. If Katie and Mav are listening, this is it. This is when you want to look at it. Okay. Here's the Spider Retail XRT. The reason why I'm highlighting this, obviously, is because the retails, oh my God, taken to the woodshed, toad feathered, and they threw the baby out with the bathwater. But XRT, this is a weak time of year for it. You buy this dip. So I'm going to look to buy the dip. I bought a little bit of Abercrombie and Fitch yesterday, but I'm going to look to see on the extensions whether they want to do XRT or whether they want to do something like Gap stores or something like that. I mean, they really took things down, right? Okay. All right, here's the XRT. You can see here, yank, basically failure on the breakout. Potential now is going to go down here. So with something like this, I'll probably look at the individual tickers, all right? See what if I see some sort of support coming in. XLK, let's keep an eye on this. It is holding the breakout extension. Notable price target on this breakout is 196.39. Obviously, we do not want to see this fail on the monthly. This is a measured move. For those of you who have been with me a while, know this is what I do, measured moves, symmetry, human nature, to do the same thing over and over again. That's why these algos work, because it captures human nature. All right, here's the Qs against the XLK. Notable. Qs is breaking down. This is a multi-month breakdown, guys. You know what that means. Okay, long XLK, short Qs. I actually I think I'm going to put the spread on today, friends. Okay. My time is up. Welcome once again for those of you joining us. Premarket here. So we'll go over the salient details. We also have Thanksgiving Black Friday deals that he'll go over as well today. And have a very happy Thanksgiving. I will not be in on Friday. Are you ready, sir?
All right, just a couple of minutes here, Beth, please.
Not a problem. My pleasure. Okay, XLK against the diamonds, breaking out. Right, it's not your imagination. Don't forget what's an XLK apple. Okay, here's the XLK against IWM, grinding higher. This is XLK against SPY, notable. Okay, multi-month sideways consolidation. Got to keep an eye on it, because if it breaks, you want to be long XLK, short SPY. And basically, it's Apple, right? Apple against SPY. Just say. That's what it's saying. Well, I guess it could be Microsoft as well, right? All right, FANG against XLK. Breaking down, looking horrible. Basically, next leg down here, as you can see on the is basically on the spread 44.80. So you're probably talking 5 to 7.5% on the downside here. Then we see how things play out. The dreaded H is upon us, right? Whoop, whoop. Not what we want to see. This is actually a bearish setup, right? With FANG. Money coming out of FANG, right? Into individual stocks. Just saying. XLY against XLK. Now, this is a pretty massive consolidation pattern, right? This is a weekly. We're close to the mid. I have no idea how this is going to play out. So it is reclaiming this quadrant right here, and you can see, right? So that's kind of bullish. So if we look at this, you know, you can see right here, I'm going to actually change this to yellow so it's more pronounced. You can't really see this. Yeah. Right. So you can see it's reclaimed this pivot right inside this quadrant, and we're almost at the mid. In other words, this is saying there's no, on a risk reward basis, there's no setup here with XLY, XLK. XLP, XLK. This is really interesting. This is consumer staples. Okay, so this is actually kind of fascinating. We got a double bottom in place here on the weekly, and it's starting to reclaim. So this is a defensive trade, right? So this would tell us that the market has the yips. If XLP, consumer staples, cyclical, stuff like that is starting to bounce, that's a safe haven type rotation, right? So people are starting to think, just like with the VIX, right, and the VXN, people are starting to think that there's going to be profit taking coming on. As you can see, you know, if you overlay it, why this would go down, because XLK, right, is strengthening against XLP, and now got to keep an eye on that. These are all red flags that I need to talk to you about, because this is how my thought process works when we have this sort of thing. We've got setups in a couple of these discretionary, a couple of these things that make me think, okay, that we are going to see more of a pullback until for the next 1 to 2 weeks. Okay. After that, I don't care. I'm going long and deep. And you know this, I love this time of year, especially December, January, when I basically set up my 2+ year trades. So 2024, being patient, things are really going well for us. So that's my story on that one. Amazon against XLK. I have to do it. It's FANG, right? All right, so this is kind of important, right? That it basically, no real risk reward, but we got to keep an eye on this double bottom here, well, triple bottom, right? Not a good look. Microsoft against XLK. Oh my goodness gracious. This is telling us basically Apple in the XLK is holding the market up. We went over Apple yesterday. Microsoft against XLK. What's this telling us? You can be long Apple and short Microsoft. That's what it's telling us. I'm sorry, but this is what it's telling us. Apple against XLK. This is, you know, that's all I have to say. Right? It's fascinating, right? Because it's basically against itself, right? So this is basically telling us XLK is weakening against Apple, right? Oh, duh. Let's see if it breaks. If it does, there's a lot of room on the downside. This is another red flag that tells us we can be long Apple against other things. I know, that's what I do. Right? Facebook against XLK. Wow, the dreaded M, right? For those of you who know me, know I love the M. There are lots of M's here.
All right, Beth, I'm ready to pop on.
Hi, my friends. Have a nice Thanksgiving. Be well.
Alrighty, guys, what's up? Let me just pop up the screen share here. Here we go. And here we are. All right. So if you guys are new to chat, make sure to click the Discord link that's emailed to you. Once you do click the link, you're going to come into chat. It's going to look like this. First area to go to when you do come in, guys, click on the disclaimer section, give it a read, as well as go to the new to chat information section and scroll to the very top, read from the top down. I'll go through this after we do close down the YouTube stream, okay? But that's where you want to start for now. Premarket tickers on watch. What do we got going on today, guys? A couple different things. Tesla, ADSK, Roblox, Plan, JWM, OCUP. Tesla CEO Elon Musk sold $1 billion worth of automaker shares on Tuesday. Basically, that's why we saw that pretty robust sell-off yesterday intraday. ADSK earnings EPS beat, rev in line, year-over-year growth 18.2%. Q4 guidance slightly lowered, stocks gapping down on that. Roblox, we got a little bit of a bounce just from last couple of days sell-off, bringing to EMA support on the daily. Plan earnings EPS beat and revs, year-over-year growth 35.2%. Q4 guidance slight raise, stocks gapping down. JWM earnings miss, EPS and rev in line, year-over-year growth 17.7%. 2022 guidance lowered, warns of supply issues. Stocks gapping down on that. And OECUP, HC Wainwright and company initiates coverage on Ocup Fire Pharma with buy rating, announces price target of $26. Stock's gapping up on that. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint. Intraday, first two we're looking at today, guys, Tesla and ADSK. So let's have a look at these. So Tesla, ADSK. So Tesla, a little bit of a gap down. Let's take a look at where we got room to today. Daily chart. First thing I want to take a look at real quick. So we're into short-term EMA support, looks like. This is going to be the pivot level. 1095. Also the head and shoulders on the daily to the upside. Just out of curiosity, I want to see where this little uptrend is going to be. Oops. Let's get that over here. Get rid of the first one. There we go. Okay, let's look at this thing intraday. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at what we got going on. So pivot to the downside today right now on Tesla is going to be 1096. This level is able to be reclaimed and held, I should say. We got room towards 118.49 to that 1154.90. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback on Tesla towards 1078 to the 1046.81 spot. That level breaks. You're going to see that uptrend retested on the daily. Overall on Tesla, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today. I'll be looking for a reclaim of that pivot and a little bit of a bounce. We'll see if it's able to do so. I think you can stay within this range, but if it is unable to do so, I do think that uptrend on the daily will probably be the magnet. Let's take a look at ADSK. Stock got a pretty big pullback there. Let's see where we got room to today. So ADSK, we're gapping down all the way to around 263 a share at the moment. So 263. Might be a bit tight. All right, let's take a look at this thing intraday. At 265.22, pivot to the downside today. This level is able to hold. We get room back towards 270.78 to 278.19. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback to 256.92 to 252.44 on the downside. Overall on ADSK, going to be leaning a little bit on the bullish neutral side today. Looking for a pull this morning, and then I want to see some basing kick in and a little bit of a curl and bounce. I think you can get a slight bounce on it today. Earnings weren't, terrible, but it did get a pretty big pullback. I think, basically was slightly bought into, sold off that entire gap, or sold off that entire move. And we'll have to see how it acts after this morning. So I think it will pull back a little bit. We can look for that basing. All right, so that's Tesla, that's ADSK, RBLX, plan. Let's take a look at these two. Roblox, ton of range. This is why I chose it. Let's see where they got room to today on this thing. A lot of different levels to be looking at. Let's get that last day high area. Last day's lows with the EMA support on the daily, as well as that head and shoulders level. Lower end resistance or support, I mean. Let's take a look at this thing intraday. Okay. So 117.37 pivot level holds from towards 121 to the 125.71 area. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback to 113.49 to 110.53 on the downside. Overall on RBLX, I'll be looking for a little bit of a bounce today, hold of the pivot, and a push towards the top end of the range here. Does have some room to push. Needs to hold that pivot though. That's going to be the key. Leaning bullish only if that pivot can be reclaimed. Out the gate this morning. Plan. Let's take a look at this. Those things getting smacked on earnings, which, I mean, technically weren't bad if you read them. We'll have a beat, EPS revs, Q4 guidance slight raise. Not the end, or not the worst thing. Bunch of downgrades on it today. However, all right, let's take a look at this name intraday. But decent earnings, bad action. Typically, you get continuation lower. I can't get the lower end levels. You can't see them. So pivot to the downside today, 41.69, able to be reclaimed, moving towards 44.82 to 48.79, or sorry, 76. Unable to hold the pivot point. We got room for continuation towards 37.24 to 33.65 on the downside. Going to be leaning bearish on plan today, looking for a continuation lower. So we'll be looking for that next leg down. So that is RBLX, that is plan. All right, let's take a look at the next two names here. JWM and OCUP. So JWM gapping down, bad earnings, supply issues, and it had a pretty decent run up off the lows as well. Pretty much giving back that entire gain of as of late. Let's see what we got room to today. So gapping down to around 23 a share. So we broke this little range here. Quite an ugly looking chart now. All right. Pivot to the downside today, 25.96. This level is able to be reclaimed. We got room back towards 29.60 to the 32.46. Unable to hold 22.47 to that 19. Let's see what it exactly is. 19.21 level on the downside will be tested. Overall on JW, I'm going to be leaning bearish neutral, looking for a continuation grind to the downside today. So broke below, basically the yearly range to the downside. And I think it's got room for continuation lower because of that. All right, let's take a look at this OCUP. So these guys had that $26 price target from HC Wainwright. So a little bit of a gap up on that. Small caps have been quite, crazy this week in regards to follow through during the day, typically not much overnight. But certainly have had room intraday, which is notable. So anything that has any sort of news behind it seems to get a push. This is a decent upgrade. It is HC, so it's kind of like meh, but $26 obviously getting people's attention. Got room after that, okay. Probably get rid of the lower end. All right, let's take a look at this thing intraday. So, okay, so pivot to the upside today, 587 levels able to hold, 658 to the 729 level will be tested. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback on OCUP to 506 to the 413 level on the downside. Overall on OCUP, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side out the gate, looking for a little bit of a pop. I do think you'll probably see some topping intraday, but I'll be looking for a little bit of a push for now at the gate and see where it ends up. So that is JWM, that is OCUP. All right, let's take a look at the SPY and the FANG. Let's take a look at the market on a daily first. So we got an EMA support retest that happened yesterday. It's kind of pulling back into that level at the moment. So let's see exactly where it is. 66.46. Go there. Obviously, get last day's lows labeled. Okay, let's take a look at this thing intraday here. Got one thing I gotta do. All right, pivot to the downside today, 466.47. This level's able to hold to get room back towards 468.30 to 469.32. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback on the SPY towards 463.35 to 464.43. At the moment, going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side right now if that pivot point can hold. So pivot point breaks, we're going to start to sell off, guys. That is the daily EMA support. If it does hold, we get a decent bounce. But because we're at the moment just below it, got to be leaning on the bearish neutral side. If it gets back above it, then obviously that changes. So that is the SPY. Let's take a look at the FANG. That's the SPY. Let's take a look at the rest of the FANG. So Apple, Amazon, yada, yada. Apple pivots to the upside today, 160.03 levels able to hold. You got room towards 162.13 to 164.33. Unable to hold, look for a pullback towards 158.71 on the downside. That level breaks, we can see further continuation lower towards the 157.29 tested. Overall on Apple, going to be actually leading on the bullish neutral side today. Still looking for continuation grind higher as long as that pivot point can stay intact. I think Apple does look good. Had some great relative strength yesterday as the market sold off. I was quite impressed with that. Let's take a look at Amazon. So Amazon, a little bit of a pullback into inverted head and shoulders level on the hourly. Downtrend broke. In the short term, looks like, let's actually just draw it out. Actually, may not be. Just looking at it visually, I don't think it is. Nope, not yet. So downtrend's still intact in the short term. Got to get above that. 35.74 pivot to the upside today. This level was able to be reclaimed. We got room towards 35.98. That level breaks. We can see further continuation on Amazon into the upside towards the 36.36. Unable to hold 35.49 to the 35.25 on the downside. Overall on Amazon, going to be leaning bullish neutral if we can hold above that pivot point today. I do think it's got room to push back to retest the downtrend, and then we can see what's what after that. Room to retest that level for now, though. That's Amazon. Let's take a look at Netflix. So Netflix into that bottom end range short term, 647.28. Let's see where it's got room to on the daily. Okay, so just to the 50 MA, I guess. $640.73 and 628. Okay. So probably going to be a magnet at the 50 MA, I would think. 647.28 pivot levels able to hold. You got room towards 662.72 to 676.93. Unable to hold. Room towards 640.69 and 628 on the downside. Oops. Overall on Netflix, going to be leaning a little bit on the bearish neutral side today, looking for a retest of that pivot. I do think the 50 MA may act as the magnet. Obviously, if the market holds up, then everything should be able to push and hold their pivots, but right now it's looking a little bit heavy. Let's take a look at Facebook. So Facebook pivot. What's going on here on the daily first and foremost? A little bit of an uptrend break. Back below the 50 MA. Holding a longer term downtrend break. It's fairly consolidative right now in the medium term. Short term looks a little bit bearish. Pivot to the upside, 337.35. Levels unable to hold, 335 to 332.03 will be tested. Able to hold, we look for a push on Facebook into the 339.98 to 334. Sorry, 342.52 on the upside. Overall on Facebook, going to be leaning a little bit on the bearish neutral side today, looking for continuation lower if that pivot point's unable to hold. Facebook's always kind of tricky though. Whenever it looks bearish on the daily, it tends to get a bounce. That's what I found at least. So I'll be watching it. If it gets back above that pivot, you're probably gonna get a little bit of a squeeze to the upside. So I'll be looking at calls if that does occur. Market's coming in a little bit here, guys. If you guys were unaware. All right, so Google staying within its range for now. Pivot is going to be 29.24. This level is able to be reclaimed towards 29.52, unable to hold 28.39 to 28.60. Sorry, 28.93 to 28.64 will be tested on the downside. Going to be actually leaning on the bullish neutral side of Google today, looking for it to hold within its range. Continue to bounce a little bit. Tends to hold its range when it tests the lower end of it. So That's what I'll be watching for today. That is Google. Let's take a look at the VIX Qs IWM. So this is interesting. What do we got? We got that gap fill on the VIX yesterday. Yes, we did. All right, 2036 pivot levels able to hold. We got room towards 2090 to 2129. Unable to hold 1993 to the 1924 level will be tested. Overall in the VIX, not leaning any particular direction, but watching it for direction on the market. And clearly it's looking like it's trying to cross that pivot to the upside. So we'll keep an eye on that pivot this morning. Let's take a look at the QQQs. And I can say this about the VIX, guys. The daily looks like it's breaking back out right off the lows. For now, at least. All right, QQQ. 397.01. Pivot levels unable to hold. Room towards 395 to 393.58. Below that level, let's take a look at the next support. It is 391.31. Able to hold. Look for a push back towards 397 to basically 99. And right now, Qs are breaking EMA support on the daily when we get back below that 395 level pivot. So we do have some room lower. In my opinion, I'm going to be leaning bearish on the QQQ today, looking for if that pivot's unable to hold next leg down. Last but not least, guys, IWM. So IWM pivot to the downside today, 230.58, unable to hold 228.61 will be tested. Below that, room for continuation into the 226.97. I'm actually going to do this so we can see, but you can see it there. Able to hold, we look for a pull or a push back to 233.45. 50 EMA broke on the IWM, has room to retest lower end range into that 227 area, basically. Going to be leaning bearish if the pivot's unable to hold. That could change. You could get a reclaim this morning and a push back to the upside. We'll see what happens. So that's a SPY, that's a FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at right now. We do look heavy in the pre-market, but we've seen that change fairly quickly out the gate. A little bit of a head fake to the downside and push. Use those pivot points. That's the whole point of them. Keep I'd probably wait for a couple minutes before they you start to trade after market open, see how things react, and then decide to basically play the trends after that. Anywho, I'm going to go ahead and pass over to Salt Beach for a little bit, guys, as I type up the pre-market action plan. When I come back, we'll do a quick little recap, and I'll mention those Black Friday promos that are on as well. All right, Salt Beach, if you're ready, it's all yours.
Hey guys, okay, let's see what's going on here. All right, bonds, 10-year, up 0.016 at 168. Okay, so moving to the top of the range that it's been in for what, forever? A long time. I think it got up to what, in March, it got up to like 175. So we're approaching that. Okay. And the 10 and the 5 years up the same amount. And so that spread, which I've been talking to you about, right? It's been like 34, 36. It dipped below that, and it's now at 33. So going back into the range it's been in, it was below that range. Still, a lot of money sloshing around, not a whole lot of places to put it, and equities, even with the way they've acted lately, still the best game in town. Looking at rates over in Europe, they're up a bunch as well. 0.04 on the 10-year in London, that's 1.04%, which is heading back up again. And we'll see what happens there. That's with the COVID and all the stuff that's going on there. Rates are still going higher. 10-year in Germany up 0.025. You get the drift. Okay, rates are going higher in the short run here. Okay, let's look at commodities. So you saw what the strategic releases, strategic oil reserves did. I think they won't make that stupid mistake again. If you want prices to go down, you got to increase supply or reduce demand. Those are your choices. This futzing around with the strategic oil reserves. I mean, a freshman in high school would know that after taking economics 101. It's embarrassing. Guys, that was just stupid. Natural gas at $5. So down from 650, up from 250, still very high. We'll see when the cold weather seeps in what's going to be. But the Europeans are beholden to Russia. That's the bottom line. We'll see how it goes. Good luck to them. Commodities. Okay, agriculture commodities are staying stubbornly high. If you look at, you just pick one, coffee, that, just spiking up. Lumber, cotton, anything that's, globally centric, as opposed to US centric, like rice, through the roof. Okay, so you have a bunch of, things that people need, prices are up, and we'll see what happens with GDP growth. But, with the curve the way it is stagflation in our future? I hope not, but there are signs that that's going to be the case. Okay, so it's worrisome. Dollar is up again. The currencies have been fairly stable, up a little bit against North America, very little movement against Asia, kind of staying in that range. And the dog is the euro, but the euro and the dollar, euro's even worse. And that's currency. So good for companies, right? Because planning is easy. There's not a whole lot of movement, etc. Crypto's having a give back day. So we'll see. Some people saying support 53,000, now resistance to 60,000, but you're getting volatility. Bitcoin's down 3%, Ethereum's down the same. Okay. And the foreign markets, let's look what's going on there. FTSE's flat. DAX is down 0.8% or 130 points. Nikkei had a rough night. They were down 1.5% or 470 points. China's relatively flat, as is Hong Kong. Okay, but if you look at year-to-date returns, just as a food for thought, Hong Kong's down 7% year-to-date. China's down 1.1%. Japan is up 14%. Germany 19%, Britain 11%, and we're up, around 30%. So you can see the outperformance the U.S. market has had this year. Okay, so that's that. Okay, banks and Fed, the market got what it wanted. They wanted Powell, they got Powell. I don't see anything that the market really wants on the horizon. So, we'll see. Okay, usually when it gets what it wants, there's a little period of give back. You know what I mean? So I think this is that period. So we'll see. China, you saw Jamie Dimon's comments on China. JP Morgan will be around longer than the Chinese Communist Party. I think that was a foolish comment. Let's put it that way. I think he might be right. The people always win in the end of the day, but I think it was very stupid, especially when you do business there. So that's China. Crypto, Nothing really new there. Oil, we discussed that strategic oil reserve stuff that Biden did, just infantile. The virus, so numbers are really bad in Germany. I saw them talking about it this morning, the worst they've been. They're considering a lockdown and a mandatory vaccination policy. We'll see what happens there. You know, they have a new government coming in. It's a center-left government, kind of similar to Biden, I would say, right? Similar to Canada, similar to a lot of places. And the only place that's kind of France is, I'm sorry, Britain isn't like that, but he seems like he's losing a lot of support. So we'll see what happens with that. But basically, you know, you're seeing these center-left governments kind of ruling the roost at this point in time. Okay, Mr. Market, what we have yesterday, we had banks and insurance, right, on higher rates. We had Bitcoin on inflation fears. These are the ups. Oil and E&P on that ridiculous snafu by the government with the strategic reserves. HMOs and hospital stocks were on the upside. So on the short side, you had the high beta, solar, and you know, the high beta names, high PE tech, solar, EV, gambling, vaccine stocks, and retail stocks were also crappy. Okay. Now looking at the picture of the market, if I look at these individual indexes like the SPYs, they're fine. I look at the Qs, they're fine as well. Russell has been kind of the dog, right? The Russell looks like it's trying to roll over a little bit. Let's look at the transports. That kind of looks fine too. But if you look at these these individual stocks the way I do, and I just keep it really simple without all the pivot points that Beth and Spartan use. I just keep it simple. What they do is great. For me, this works. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat, and the charts are just terrible. I mean, every day they just keep getting worse and worse. Rolling over, the high PE tech stocks look like crap. And when I hit up the research, I always look at the chart, and I would say that 80% of the charts are bad, 20% are good. So the leadership in this market keeps fading, and the stocks that have been leading the last few days are the stocks you don't want to see leading the market. You don't want to see consumer non-durables. You don't want to see drug stocks and bank stocks lead the way. You want to see high PE tech. You want to see growth names. You want to see big time industrials. That's not what we're seeing. Okay, we're seeing the exact opposite. Not what you would consider a healthy mix of stocks going up. Okay, but we had a really good run. Let's put things in perspective. We had a really good run, and to have a give back is not the worst thing in the world. Okay, so we'll see. Okay, for now, I think these high PE tech stocks look terrible. And for me, I don't buy anything unless it has EMA support. So for me, these are untouchable. All right, just like the Chinese stocks have been untouchable. I'll trade them from the long side. I'll fool around with them during the day, but at the end of the day, there's no way I'm taking these names. Not a chance. Okay, news out overnight. By the way, today is the 2-year anniversary of my fat finger, where I bought almost 1.7 million shares of one stock, and I had the worst Thanksgiving in my life. And I remember that day very clearly. The market was really crappy, and the market had a crappy Friday also. They tanked the market. So we'll see. I mean, but that's something that I'll never forget. And that's why I won't trade like the last half hour or so, because I don't want to have that event ever happen again. Numbers overnight, we had positive number in Guess, which is a retailer, I guess, right? Hewlett, Deere, Dell, and DADA. SLI, which is a lithium stock, got a $100 million investment from Koch Industries. These guys are freaking smart guys, okay? Super smart. So if they're putting 100 million into this stock, I think you got to take notice, okay? On the short side, you had JWin, Plan, Gap, Autodesk, VMware, okay? Let me just hit something up here. Give me a second here. All right, other news on the short side, not really much. CURA had some clinical hold by the FDA, but that's really it. News is kind of sort of quiet. Syndicate, we had one crappy IPO deal, nothing to get excited about. All right. So what do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about retail or you want to talk about Kathy? Kathy had a lot to say. I could recap it for you guys, or we can just go right into retail. Whatever you want. I'm here to please. What do you think? Let's talk about retail. Okay, that's a good start. So this guy at JP Morgan's been super bullish. He's the #1 II guy. He downgraded Gap today. So the big problem that these companies are having, it appears, when you look at through the numbers at Gap and what was the other one? Gap and where's the down list? Someone's gonna, okay, J-Win, thanks, Jay. And J-Win is, they had both, first of all, J-Win is just a shit company, guys. Okay, it is. So that is what it is. They've been run like idiots all the time, right? The management always misses. These guys, you know, the same Nordstrom family is running the show, and the Lucky Sperm Club is not having a good time with this company. All right. So, you know, that stock, I could accept them being bad because they're always bad. All right. It's just crappy company. All right. American Eagle, Gap stores, this girl was really well regarded. And the thing that infuriates me more than anything, she knew she missed her numbers and she was buying back stock hand over fist. Like, talk about disregard for people's money. I mean, if I owned this stock, I would be fuming. Forget that the fact that the numbers were bad, but how dare her take my money and buy back stock way above where it's currently trading, knowing they missed the quarter. You got to be an idiot. The SLI was the lithium stock, D. Okay, so that really infuriates me. But what we're seeing, and Kathy, let me mix what Kathy Wood said into this a little bit because there's a lot of overlap. She's saying that GDP growth in the third quarter was up 2%. Okay, but all of the increase was in an inventory built. And if you take that and you look at what Gap is saying, and you look at what Nordstrom is saying, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because they're saying that inventories built up and sales were softer, ergo margin erosion, et cetera, okay? So this and so that's kind of interesting. Secondarily, let's look at pre-COVID, all right? This retail space was crap. Let's call it the way it is, right? And now all of a sudden people wanted to get out, went to the stores, et cetera, et cetera. I'm thinking they resume, unless the company has a super online presence, it's going to be tough sledding for a lot of these retailers. Now you can look at the really good retailers like the TJ Maxx's of the world, and maybe they'll figure out a way because they have that, you know, they have a really nice strategy and all. But with the snafus, with the you know, the bottlenecks in getting goods and services in, with the inventory build, I'm thinking that this group, you just got to stay the hell away from it for now, okay? And just let it be, all right? Unless they have a special place in things, like Dollar Tree has that that hedge fund, which I've talked about a bunch of times, all right? So I think this group is becoming a non-investable group at the moment. Let's see if how they hold. I mean, there's a couple of exceptions, but I think by and large, unless they have a fantastic online presence like a Williams-Sonoma or something like that, or Macy's. I don't even like Macy's, to be honest. I just, you know, I'm curious to see if these guys, analysts, which I think stink to begin with, start saying, okay, there's a problem here, and you have to keep an eye on inventories. So I think retail's tough. Let's transition into Kathy for a minute, all right? She's saying that that she sees deflation coming, not inflation coming, all right? Which is kind of interesting. And she has a habit of being right, so pay attention to what she's saying. But she thinks this is like a blip and we're gonna have deflation. We'll see. That yield curve kind of is playing into what she's saying, that flat yield curve. All right, maybe she's right. All right, it wouldn't be the first time. Now, she's also saying that they asked her about her stocks and how crappy they're being. I think she's down 10% for the month or something like that. And she's saying that from here, she sees her 10-year compounded return based on their internal numbers at 33%. So it's the second best setup that she has seen in her group. That being said, me personally, I wait for EMA support, okay? Because who knows where the bottom is. Like I bought that Breeze yesterday, right? And it was down $5 this morning after I bought it at what? I paid 75. Now it's bouncing back a little bit. But the only reason I bought that is because my boy told me to buy it, which I listened to. But you got to be careful. When there's no EMA support, guys, you're like at the mercy of the gods, I think. What else did she say? Communications is going to be the biggest part of the biggest part of the tech stack, which I think is interesting. And she likes Zoom. That's why she's buying it. And she thinks it'll be a leader in that area. Again, no EMA support, but it did hold 200. Okay, and the areas she's focusing on, which you all probably know, but I will repeat: DNA sequencing, robotics, energy storage, AI, blockchain technology. Okay, so as far as the market setup is concerned for today, I think people are going to get out early. I think the market will not get absolutely decimated. I don't see that happening, but I think you'll get a bounce. What areas are going to be decent? Probably the areas, the safety stocks in this environment, like the what's been good, consumer non-durables and banks and stuff like that. All right. I think these tech stocks, you got to see if they can hold them. All right. They are getting oversold. My oscillator, for those of you that care, I think was a minus 56. Now I've seen it down minus 120 in, during that whole escapade when the market got killed with COVID. But we're getting down to the area where we're getting oversold. I think if it got down to minus 65, it's a good place to change your mindset a little bit from short to long. But you got to find the right horses. That's the key part. All right. But by and large, I think about 80% of the charts that I look at are nasty and give me pause. I do think we'll have a year-end rally, and that's why this downdraft. They're kind of setting themselves up to rally because they were a little stretched, and for them to rally between Thanksgiving and New Year's with that stretch, it really didn't make a lot of sense. You know what I mean? So they're coming in so they can rally. I think that's the way it's going to be, but we'll see. So that's it for me. If you have any further questions, you can DM me or I can talk later or whatever. And that's it. Okay, so I'm going to give it back to Spartan, and let's have a good day, guys. And do your trading early because it will thin out, I assure you. Okay, Spartan, it's all yours, bud.
Alrighty, thank you, South Beach. As always, guys, morning. What's going on? Let's take a look at what we got going on today, guys. A couple different things. If you are new to chat, make sure to click the Discord link. When you do come into chat, it's going to look like this. We'll go through the what to go through when you do come in after we close down the YouTube stream. So pre-market tickers on watch. Let's do a quick little recap of what we talked about today. Now, if you guys are on the YouTube stream or watching the stream, you can simply just pause it and read the action plan right now. You can see all the charts that are posted for everything, yada, yada, yada. So there you go on the equity side, option side, same thing. There we go. It's loading up there. Whoops. Can you please load? Thank you. There you go. You can pause it and look at that as well. All right, let's take a look at what we got going on. Pre-market tickers on watch through the recap. A couple different things we're looking at today: Tesla, ADSK, Roblox, Plan, JWM, OCUP. Tesla, Elon Musk sold $1 billion worth of shares. Stocks capping down. ADSK, earnings beat, EPS and rev in line. Year-over-year growth 18.2%. Q4 guidance slightly lowered. Stocks capping down on that. Roblox was bouncing slightly from last day. Still is up again, I guess. Plan, earnings, EPS beat, revs, year-over-year growth 35.2%. Q4 guidance slight raise. Stocks capping down. JWM, earnings miss, EPS and rev in line, year-over-year growth 17.7%. 2022 guidance lowered, warns a supply issue, stocks gapping down. And then OCUP, HC Wainwright basically initiates coverage and gives them a $26 price target. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. First two are that we're looking at, guys, Tesla and ADSK. Tesla, 1096.06 pivot, levels unable to hold, 1078 to 1046 will be tested. Able to hold, look for a push back towards 119.49 to 1154.90 on the upside. Overall on Tesla, going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side for now, unless that pivot gets reclaimed. ADSK pivot, 265.22, levels able to hold, 270.78 to 278.19 will be tested. Unable to hold, 256.92 to 252.44 will be tested on the downside. Overall on ADSK, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today, looking for a little bit of a bounce. If we can reclaim that pivot point this morning, or if we get a pull and basing occur, I think it's a decent name to look at on a bounce. All right, let's take a look at the next two, RBLX and Plan. RBLX 117.37 pivot, levels able to hold, room towards 121 to 125.71, unable to hold 113.49 to 110.53 on the downside will be tested. Overall on RBLX, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side only if that pivot point can be reclaimed. Plan 41.69 pivot, levels able to hold, 44.82 to 48.76 will be tested. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback on the name into the 37.24 to 33.65 on the downside, leaning bearish neutral on that name today. Let's take a look at JWM. Let's take a look at OCUP. JWM pivot 25.96, levels able to be reclaimed. 29.60 to 32.46 will be tested. Unable to hold, 22.47 to that 19.21 level on the downside. Going to be leaning bearish if that pivot's unable to be reclaimed. OCUP 587 pivot, 658 on the upside if that holds to the 729, unable to hold 506 to 413. Going to be leaning bullish this morning only if we get a flag break now and a reclaim of the pivot. Looks like right now it's just trying to fill that gap. We'll see what happens there. Let's take a look at the SPY and the FANG. SPY 466.47, and as always, going to type this up. 466.47 pivot to the downside today. Pivot unable to hold. Okay, room lower into the 465.35 support breaks. We see the 464.43 tested. Pivot reclaimed, room higher into the 468.30 resistance breaks. You see the 469.32 level tested. Going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side if pivot is not reclaimed. So if we don't reclaim the pivot, guys, we do have room lower. It is below EMA support on the daily. That's what that pivot point is. Could see a head fake to the downside though. Let's take a look at the Apple. Apple pivot on the upside today, still strong, looks like. 160.03 level holds, 162.13 to 164.33, unable to hold 158.71 to 157.29 on the downside. Going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today, looking for a continuation push higher. Let's take a look at Amazon. $35.74 levels able to hold. Room towards 35.98 to 36.36. Unable to hold 35.49 to 35.25 on the downside will be tested. Overall, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today if that pivot point is able to be reclaimed. Netflix pivot upside today. 647.28 levels able to hold, 662.72 to 676.93 will be tested. Unable to hold, 640.69 will be tested on the downside. Overall, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today, looking for a continuation higher. Facebook pivot to the upside today. What's up, guys? Pivot to the downside today, 337.35, unable to hold, 335.08 to 332.02 will be tested. Able to hold 339.98 to 342.52 on the upside. Overall on Facebook, going to be leaning bearish, looking for a continuation lower if that pivot point's unable to hold. Google pivot to the downside today is going to be the 29.24 levels unable to hold, 29.80, sorry, 28.93, 28.64, able to hold, look for a push back to 29.52 to that 29.75 area on the upside. Going to actually be leaning on the bullish neutral side today. Let's take a look at going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today. Sorry, let's take a look at the VIX QS IWM. VIX 2036 pivot levels able to hold. Room for continuation into the 2090 to 2129. Unable to hold, look for a pullback towards 1993 to 1924 on the downside. Overall on the VIX, not leaning any particular direction, but watching that for direction on the market as we always do. Let's take a look at the QQQs. $395.01 pivot levels able to hold. We got rid towards 397.01 to 398.99. Unable to hold 393.58, 391.31 on the downside will be tested. Going to be leaning on the bearish neutral side of the Qs, looking for continuation lower if that pivot's unable to be reclaimed. Pivot unable to be reclaimed, guys. That is the break of the EMA support on the daily. So keep that in the back of your mind. And then IWM, it's below the 50 EMA, 230.58 pivot, unable to hold 228.61 to 226.97 will be tested. Able to hold 233.45 will be tested. Overall on IWM, leaning bearish neutral as well. So that's a SPY, that's the FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at today, guys. If you have any questions, you can go to spartantrading.com. And again, we do have those Black Friday promos on. If you click on the bottom end of the website, I think there's a banner down there that the admin put up. Just look. But yeah, if you have any questions, guys, feel free to reach out. Happy to help. Otherwise, we do this every single Wednesday. So we'll see you guys next Wednesday if you want to tune in then.